And that was that I had self-esteem, but I didn't know that there was a difference between self-esteem and self-worth. And there's a huge difference. Self-esteem is like, I am the director development of Citibank, 19 branches. Self-esteem. I did something that I can claim, and that builds who I think that I am. But when you're in bed or when you're on the sidelines, for any of your listeners, then you have to go to self-worth, and you alone determine your worth. You might think that you get self-worth from everybody else, but that's the fallacy that I learned the hard way.
You're listening to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, the no BS podcast for women over 40 who are sick of playing by someone else's rules. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, badass midlife strategist, truth teller, and professional fire starter for midlife reinvention. Around here, we don't do fluff. We do real talk, bold strategies, and badass breakthroughs. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's your damn power move. If you're all in, unapologetic, and ready to reinvent, let's get started. Hello, badass listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. And today I have a really fascinating guest for you. Her name is Deborah Weed, and she's got a really cool project that she'll tell you about. So Deborah, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Sue. And I am so excited to be here. Not even a question.
Good. There are no questions. Yes, there will be lots of questions. That is not one. So tell us a little bit about how I know where we've had a couple of chats, and how did you get to where you are right now? And here's a little spoiler alert. She is in the process of creating a Broadway musical. So I'll just leave it at that. How did you get here?
Thank you, Sue. It's so interesting because today with you, I get to claim something that I haven't claimed before. I am a badass.
Oh, yeah. Your badge is in the mail.
Thank you.
I ought to come up with little badges or a little something to send to my guests. That would be so cool.
Yeah, because you know what? Here's the thing that's so ironic. I didn't start out that way. I started out as a sensitive kid. I started out where I was an empath, more of an empath. But when people would tell me, Deborah, you're so sensitive. Oh, you're sensitive, which my heart really was. And at that time, I was like, I'll show you. You think that about me? I'll show you. So where I went from sensitive empath was to director of development for Citibank, 19 branches. And I also worked on a $26 million pavilion with Disney and Universal Consultants and for Kia Motors in Daejeon, Korea. But what a pavilion is kind of like, it's a small world after all.
Right.
It's everything that goes inside of a ride show.
Wow.
So I was out to prove something to the world. And in that, what I didn't understand and didn't know is that corporate and hearts do not necessarily mix.
Interesting. So, when you talked about people calling you sensitive and being an empath, it sounds to me, and then you said, well, I'll prove them. Why do you feel like you had to be something other than a sensitive empath? What did you feel was bad about that?
And that is such a brilliant question because at the time, when people would say you're so sensitive, you're too sensitive, I took that as being like a put down, that there was something wrong with me, that I had to overcompensate, that I had to get away from who I was to be accepted. And even now, I'm just learning that the group mentality I mean, there's like literally a ding, ding, ding in our brain of wanting to belong.
Yeah.
Oh, how I wanted to belong. And somehow, when I heard the too sensitive, empath, any of those things, it felt like I was on the outside and I wanted to be on the inside.
So it sounds like you did go on the inside. And then once you were there, what happened?
Well,
I mean, you did, those are some huge projects that you just talked
yeah,
about. I mean,
yeah.
so you tucked your little sensitive empath in somewhere in a closet someplace, and you marched forward into the corporate America with a bang. And what happened to your sensitive little empath?
Yeah. Well, hey, first let me say that I had the opportunity of wearing the high heels and the beautiful outfits and the shoulder pads. It was the day of the shoulder pads.
Yeah, I was going
And
to say
it
that
felt
sounds like an
cool.
80s thing to me.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess life gave me the 2x4 because I
Oh.
had a health situation that was a mystery. And for 3 years, I went from being at the top of my game, or so I thought, to being bedridden.
Wow.
And while I was bedridden, I learned the most fascinating thing about myself and everybody for that matter. And that was that I had self-esteem, but I didn't know that there was a difference between self-esteem and self-worth. And there's a huge difference. Self-esteem is like, I am the director development of Citibank, 19 branches. Self-esteem. I did something that I can claim, and that builds who I think that I am. But when you're in bed or when you're on the sidelines, for any of your listeners, then you have to go to self-worth, and you alone determine your worth. You might think that you get self-worth from everybody else, but that's the fallacy that I learned the hard way.
Interesting. So self-esteem, and I think about, because I used to have low self-esteem. And when I think about self-esteem, I think about, it does seem to be tied into self-worth, or our own image of our self-worth. And then when you talked about self-esteem being, accomplishments and so forth, I kind of equate that to like an identity, like ego and
Yes.
identity that way, right?
Yes.
And so sounds like you had to get hit over the head and
Hard.
hard, knock you into bed,
Yeah.
and to be bedridden. And then you couldn't be this identity that you had created, this powerful person, this I'm so, I've done all these things. It separated you from your identity that you had created. Now what?
Well, the first thing that I learned in the self-worth arena was that in essence, it was really bringing me back to myself. I didn't know it at the time. I can almost only claim it like way many years later. But now I realize that I was always heart-centered. That's who I am. That's who I was. So I had a misdiagnosis, and the misdiagnosis made it very difficult because, for all the people out there who might have long COVID, especially women, Sue, we are misdiagnosed because we understand our bodies so well. So we go to the doctor with this explanation, and a lot of them are not used to it because men, they don't go to a doctor unless something's we know that things are going wrong, kind of chaos every day. So during that time, I lost my voice.
Like literally lost your voice?
No. As I went to doctors, okay, I'll give you a for instance. I go to the first doctor, and the first doctor says to me, "You have MS." I'm like,
Wow,
okay. He's
that's
like,
big.
that's
Yeah.
big. He's like, it's in the brain stem, and they won't figure it out until after you die. I'm
Oh,
like, okay.
thanks for that.
Right.
Can I get a second opinion?
Well, that's what I did. I'm still that corporate mentality. So I go to the second one. Second one says to me, "Oh, well, it's Lou Gehrig's."
Oh, geez.
And we probably won't know for years. I'm like, well, what can I do about it? Well, not much. I go to the third doctor, and the third doctor says, well, it seems like it's all in your head. Now, I knew it wasn't all in my head because the pain that I was having was that of giving birth every single day. And
Awesome.
I could hardly get up. So
Wow.
between extensive amount of pain and between a weakness that I can't even begin to describe except to say that I couldn't get up,
Right.
it was excruciating. So I'm now in a position where my word, what I'm saying, means nothing.
Mm.
Even though for so long, I worked very hard to get to a point where I did have the power and the strength. And so I promised myself at that time of my life that if I ever got out of this, that I would start something called the Self-Worth Initiative and make a difference for kids and their families with books and musicals, to have them understand truly what self-worth meant. Because here's the other piece that happens to so many, and I know I'm not alone in this. When you are told by various people that your integrity is questioned and you don't know what's happening to you, the family members around you start to question you too. And
Interesting.
that is excruciating because you have not only lost your sense of self, you've lost your tribe. So many things have happened to implode that how do you get balance in that? Ironically now, fast forward, I realize that all of those experiences that I've had have informed me and made me so beyond passionate to make a difference, especially in the area of reclaiming one's power
Mm-hmm.
and finding one's voice. The two things that I lost. And the more that I talk to women, especially, and, their daughters and conscious dads and men, you realize this is happening to so many, and so many shrink and they don't know how to get back up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm sorry that you had to go through all of that to get to the point where you are now. And so tell me about how you are educating women and young women and people in general to be able to reclaim your power and get back to yourself and get your voice back if you've
Hey,
lost it,
yeah.
and or maybe how to find it in the first place.
Right. You did. Well, I do best, though, there's so many ways that I can make a difference, but the way that I thrive with making a difference is through storytelling, theatrical things, books. So I needed a protagonist, Sue, something that would really, really give people the whole idea of giving one's power away. So for me, it was a porcupine. The
That's an interesting choice.
Well, let me tell you why.
Okay,
There's a
I
good
can't wait.
reason. So porcupines, they're supposed to put up their quills, right?
Yeah.
To protect themselves. So I came up with having a porcupine that must give away her quills, her protection, by dreaming of being an animal fashion designer. But in the
That's an interesting
animal
concept.
Right, I know, right? But in the animal fashion world, she is going to be forced by Zavana, who's a couture diva, like the Duchess of the Fashion Forest, Met Gala type designs. She needs to use her quills as pins because Zavana sees every porcupine as a walking, talking pincushion. Only there to help her designs become more magnificent. So with this storyline, I created what I really wanted to do more than anything was capture what real women are going through, but in a magical realism realm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed animal models that would represent that. So I have Tara. Tara's a white tiger, and she has to wear goldfinch and goldworm gowns that are ridiculous. They do not make her look like a badass. They make her look like, a diva. But underneath, she wants to be a rocker. She wants to just let it out. And so Paisley has to repin her, like Zavana's concepts to meet Tiara's needs. But every time she's giving away a piece of herself, Zavana's telling her, do not touch my designs. And so little by little, she's giving away more and more and more to the animal models that are there that we get to know until she's down to her last quill. And it's what she does with her last quill that makes a difference. And the reason that I started out with a children's book, and the children's book got all 5 stars, and mothers were like telling me that their little girls, it's called Paisley's Last Quill, still on Amazon. And mothers were telling me, oh my gosh, my daughter is like, she's sleeping with this book. She loves Paisley. But what about me? I'm relating to this book. I've given away my power. What you got? And so after some more health challenges and personal challenges with a husband who I loved who passed, with so many things that transpired where I felt like I had been pushed to my knees, it was like, why not go for my big over-the-top dream? I've done many musicals for kids and their families, but why not aim for Broadway? So I've taken Paisley's Last Quill. Now it's become Paisley the Musical, and I'm in the process of creating it and going right after a musical like Wicked or The Lion King, that kind of magical realism, that kind of world. But my golden thread is definitely the whole idea of let me take the audience on a journey of Paisley giving away her power, quill by quill, until she's able to regain it in the most magical way. And what I've experienced so far is the women who are listening that have, I can't release the music quite yet, but I'm going to be. The women who are listening to the music, Sue, they're crying. They feel something. And here's what they're saying. I listen to songs, and so often I don't feel something. This immediately touches something in me that I'm identifying, and I want to get back. And I want to shine, and I want to be back to that magnificent person who's not afraid of failure, who can go for the big dream, who won't give their power away, and reclaims their voice.
That's a tall order. Wow. And how long? So the book that you wrote, the children's book, that was the sort of the idea, and you're like, I could create this into a living, breathing musical and everything. There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, writing a book is one thing, and creating beautiful illustrations and a story that people can resonate with. How are you going about translating that? And you said, well, I guess you told me that you had created that pavilion. So I'm guessing that it's something similar to that, where it's a performance and it's, so you're pulling from your corporate experience. And this is the thing that I want to point out, is that all of those things that you identified with in your corporate world, where you had tucked away your, quiet, empathic self, your heart self. But now and this is what happens, I think, to a lot of people, where they identify with something and don't realize that all of these experiences that they've had, good, bad, indifferent, you can pull from them and create something new, which it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. All of that experience that you had, creating those amazing things that at the time you did them in a powerful way. You lost your quills, And now you've got your last quill and you're pulling back all of those things. Am I getting it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is so astute because every single thing that's ever happened, good, bad, and indifferent, the traumas that could take you to my knees, that informs me of how to write the musical so that it will touch hearts. The corporate experience allows me to just know when I worked with Disney and Universal people, you learn anything's possible. Like, there's so much that goes on. In a pavilion, it's the creative, but there's also the techie side. There's like a lot of geeky tech people that are making sure the motion base goes exactly at the time that you're seeing the visual. I mean, I had the privilege of seeing that anything one dreams of is possible, and with the heartbreak, it's sort of like, if you're going to have heartbreak, why not go for the big over-the-top dream? To everybody that's sitting out there, like, you've already been on your knees, get up, take all that experience and do something with it. At least for me, my major motivator is because I know that there's somebody out there like me who I could say these things over and over again. That's great. But to go through an experience of a storyline, to have songs that become an anthem, how powerful is that? And you asked how I'm going to do it. I'm doing it a little different than most. Usually the quick thing on Broadway is that you have to have $14 to $40 million.
That's nothing.
Nothing. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. To do what I'm aiming towards. And it takes 7 to 10 years of where I'm sitting to polish the script, get the dancers, do everything. And then all of a sudden you see this and it's magnificent. It either works or it doesn't. I'm not doing it that way. I do not have a $14 to $40 million budget, let alone not even close. But so what I'm going to be doing is releasing a 5-song album, and I want to entrench it in women so that they can sing it in their car anytime that they want to, because I know with me, I listen to Hamilton, and every time, or Wicked, every time I'm hearing those songs, there's something in me that rises. There's something in me that gives me hope. And I'm going to start with a listening party coming up January 11th. So that's where everything's starting. I got the actors that are going to be doing the cold read. And there you go.
Awesome. That's great. I love that you're able to not make it sound easy, but I love that you are encouraging women to, in order to help them find their voice, because I think taking that first step is scary. And to anyone who's listening, that they're saying, yeah, that sounds amazing, and I could never do that. Right? What do you say to somebody like that? Because just what you said is like, yeah, go big or go home, right? And I think that scares the crap out of people.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And it's like, if you're going to do something, do the biggest version of it you can. And if someone's not ready to do that, mount a Broadway play or musical or whatever, what can they do? What's that first step that they can take?
Yeah. Well, and here's something that,
like, because you didn't get there overnight. This has been
my gosh,
a process.
Yeah, I'm a grandma. No, it's taken me a long time to get here. I think that first of all, you have to be willing to fail and fail with grace, because I'm learning I'm learning how to do animation. I'm learning how to, learning how to produce an album. I'm learning how to do things that I've never done before. And I'm willing to be a beginner. I think for most of our culture, we think that you get there because you're just there. And that's not true. Back in the day, can you imagine being an apprentice that you're working, you have a dream and you want to be a dancer and you're working with somebody and they're working with you all these years and then you become amazing? We don't have that anymore. And people see on social media, it looks like that somebody's just got it or did it or whatever it might be. Okay, let me go back to basics. I truly feel with all my heart that creativity heals. And creativity can come in any way. I mean, somebody who's baking cookies, that's creativity. Somebody who's being kind to somebody in a grocery store and has the eye to say to somebody, wow, I like what you're wearing, or you made my day. I mean, creativity is like an inspiration from above. So I don't think it's a matter of, I'm not trying to go for Broadway to be big. I'm trying to go to Broadway to have the most impact and make a difference in people's lives. And even if I never make it there, every single day, I do my best to be boots on the ground. I do my best to be kind. I do my best to let the creativity flow through me. Do I get scared? Yeah. It's like the duck that's, that's on the pond. We don't see the little feet going like underneath. We just see the
Yeah.
So I think the first step is, when I'm encouraging people to be big, I don't mean in scope. I mean in empower, knowing their worth, knowing how valuable they are. That's step number one. Nothing will come, beyond that. And then the second thing is that I don't think that big things come once you get confidence. I think it's the other way around. I think you start doing things, and that's where the confidence is built little by little. And when it comes to giving away power or reclaiming power, people might misunderstand what I mean by that too. I don't mean, when I say get your voice, I don't mean speak up harder or, like get into a conversation. Because if you are fighting with somebody, that's not necessarily more power. Sometimes you're just trying to prove something. Real power, and I'm still working on it, comes from, once again, knowing your worth, being centered. And when you speak and when you say something, it's because you're in alignment. Because I know for a fact I was out of alignment for so long. Heart over here, corporate, which is mainly cerebral. Whoa, what a difference. And so many people are doing that. They're trying to overcompensate for what they see as weakness.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I do think that when, like you said, empowerment comes from within, it comes from being aligned, it comes from speaking your truth, not putting someone down, but speaking from the heart and feeling from within and putting all of that energy forward. And so I think that is a very beautiful way to look at things and get your quills back, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I got a thing called Quills Up, and that's exactly what it is. It's like, if you give away quills because you want to belong, or because you want to look good, or because whatever it might be, and the reason is not aligned with what's really in your heart, that's giving away power. If you give a quill for love, that's sharing. That's something different.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about the, when you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's like having an expectation. If you do something for someone else with the expectation that it will be reciprocated, that has no power. That has nothing behind it, because you're doing it for gratification of some level. Like, if I do this for you, then it'll come back to me. That's not the reason to That's not the reason to make a kind gesture or to, do you know what I'm saying? Does that
Oh
make
my
sense?
gosh. And I think I have to say that I think I'm a queen of being a people pleaser for so long. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that once again, it informs me with what I'm writing. When you say badass, no, 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 still kind of meek, sweet. Let me see what I can do. And I've learned, at least for me, that a lot of it goes back to childhood where there was I'm going to tell you a funny story, or not funny story, a story that I've never told. I was not necessarily close to my mom, but after she passed, she's my angel, if that makes any crazy sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when when I was really young, I used to make her cakes. When she would go out, I'd babysit and make cakes. And then at first it was like, "Oh, wow, that cake is amazing." And then little by little, it was like, "Well, why didn't you make me a cake like this? Well, why wasn't it like that?" All of a sudden, it was never enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that for so long when I would do something now, I would feel underappreciated, and it would hurt. It would really hurt. And I saw that maybe I am doing what you're saying. I wanted to be appreciated because when I was a kid, that memory came up so strong for me. It's so simple, so little. It feels like it's insignificant, right? And yet that's what came up when I thought, wow, look at what you're doing, Deborah. You still want to be appreciated. Get out of that mode, appreciate what you're doing, understand why you're doing the motivation, and go back to that heart place.
Mm-hmm.
So I, like everybody else, you know, one of the reasons I'm doing that musical and writing that story is because Paisley's definitely a porcupine pleaser. And she has to learn, just like me and most of us the hard way, that that's not why you want to give away the quills. You do want to give your quills for love, because when that happens, the whole world changes. Yours and everybody else's.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. If you're doing things for the wrong reasons, it's going to come back to bite you for sure. And I just want to clarify something about being a badass. Being a badass does not mean that you have to have a harsh exterior or anything else. It just means that you are in your power. So that is being a badass. So there you go.
I
So
got
you can
that.
be a
I
quiet, a meek badass if you want.
I got
Doesn't
that. And that's why
okay.
it's so exciting for me to claim, because I do understand that badass is the same as quills up. It's
Okay, gotcha.
essentially that, that's why I was kind of excited to say it, because, it feels good. It
Yeah.
feels whole. This is a crazy thing, but I looked up what healing is,
Mhm.
and it means whole.
Mhm.
Whole. You are healed when you're whole. Whole does not mean when you're good. Whole does not mean when you're bad. Whole does not mean when you are sick. Whole does not mean when you're healthy. Whole means whole. So when I think of the word, the reason that I'm so excited to say it is because something about the word badass feels whole,
Awesome. I love it. And you had said it before. You feel aligned.
aligned.
Yep. And I work with horses, which we had talked about in
Yeah.
my coaching practice, and horses know when we are not aligned. They
Oof.
know when our insides are not matching our outsides.
Wow.
And that it's challenging for them to understand because they're looking at us and they're like, I'm not feeling congruence. I'm
Wow.
feeling incongruence.
Wow.
And what's it going to take for you to figure that out and get your together, and so it's interesting. But yes, horses have that ability to sense all of those things, whereas we when we go through life, we have a certain facade that we carry. We present ourselves in a way, and when you were in corporate America, you were presenting yourself as a different kind of a badass. You weren't a whole badass. You were just, I'm large and in charge here, and that's what we're doing. But that was the corporate identity that you had, I'm guessing.
Yes,
It sounds like it
absolutely.
anyway,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, and now you have come into alignment, you're whole, and, and I think, honestly, we are all always working on becoming that
Always.
whole. It's never 100%, but once we start to understand, it's kinda like I was at the eye doctor the other day, and it's funny because they do all this digital testing and everything like that, and then when you get to see the doc, it's this whole analog thing, right? Where they're like 1 or 2, and then they change it to so it's a little blurry and it's a little, 1 or 2. So a lot of that is how I think about coming into alignment. It's like sometimes it's a little blurry, sometimes it's a little
I
clearer,
love that.
and all of these, and it just made me think about my trip to the eye doctor, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna do these 2 things, and when they line up, you let me know. And I'm like, okay, stop right there. So, but that's how it is. I mean, and it's never 100% in focus 100% of the time. So, but the thing is, if we have that idea of this is what alignment looks like, this is what not just looks like, but feels like.
Yeah.
How do you feel in your body when your quills up, when you feel protected, when you feel empowered, when you feel whole?
Yes.
What does it feel like? And if we can bring that, that people can understand that it's a whole thing. It's not just a mindset. It's a whole body set.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I think everybody should do that. The alignment test. 1, 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2, because they flip a switch and it's like
I know.
one way it looks clear, or the other way it's like, and I'm like, could you do that again? Not 2, I guess. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. But then they can really dial in your new prescription, right?
Yes.
And like, okay, perfect.
I love that. I think they should go viral right there. Right there.
There you go.
It's
right
like
there.
the alignment test.
Yeah, 1 or 2. if only it were that easy. But it did kind of think about it and if you can kind of say, when you're presented with a situation, is it a 1 or a 2? Does it feel aligned, or does it not feel aligned? Right?
Yeah. Sue, there you go.
Ding, ding, ding. We're out of here.
Drop the mic. There you go.
That's it. 1 or 2. Right? Does this feel aligned with me and where I want to go and who I want to be, or does it not?
Yes.
Is it blurry or is it in focus?
Ooh,
so there you go.
Wow, that's so
the
powerful.
eye doctor analogy.
No,
metaphor, whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
I think you said it. The alignment method.
Yeah.
Sue's alignment method.
I love it.
See it really going everywhere, because that is what we need for all of us. Because even though I might be immersed in this creativity, which brings me so much joy, but I also lost a husband recently. So I go from wailing to wonder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, this is so much fun. I can't wait to catch up with you and hear how Paisley's doing. But all of the things, you dropped a lot of really good wisdom here,
Excellent.
And I'd love to know if somebody is curious about you, about Paisley, about your journey, what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Definitely to go to Paisley'sFashionForest.com.
I love it.
Paisley.
It sounds like a magical place.
It is. I mean,
it's also a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. Paisley'sFashionForest.com. But there they will get an idea of the world that's created. They'll be able to follow along. And I'm also looking for singers, dancers, investors, producers, everybody. And there's a form that people can fill out, because you remember in the old days where you used to go to a fountain shop and, somebody would be discovered. I'm looking for the next Idina Menzel, and I know they're out there.
Well, and also it is a beautiful, the illustrations
Thank
and
you.
it's beautiful, it's colorful, and it is a whole world. I've been to the website and I've looked at all of the imagery, and it is just stunning. So yeah, that in and of itself is a beautiful treat. All right, great. Any final words for someone who is on the cusp or thinking, wow, this is really motivating me. It's resonating with me. What can you tell them?
You were born with a gift. You were born with a gift. And if you just open up to inspiration, because it's truthfully, nothing's really for me. It seems to just drop in. And it's sort of like I'm just taking notes. And I think that's the case for all of us. So that anybody who's out there who's like, but I wanted to write the book, or, I just wanted to do this. Don't be afraid to fail, because you don't want regrets. At the end of your life, you don't want to be thinking, I could have, I should have, I would have.
Yep. The old coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Well, that's beautiful. And I do like that, just open up that channel. Open up and let those things in. Let them, let them pass through you. Let them, and it's hard. It is hard sometimes to open up and let things, especially creativity. I think creativity is a tough one for people to connect with, because being a creative person, I feel, makes you more vulnerable, because you're putting yourself out there in a different way than, some corporate thing that you're doing, right? I think creativity, because it is your heart, your soul, your whatever, is a very vulnerable place.
Sue, do we have time for one more quick story? I
Sure,
think
sure.
it's really applicable. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I'm asking.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
dad gave me so much wisdom. And here's what he told me that changed my life. He said that the quasi emotion that stops people almost every time is not fear. It's disappointment. And I'm going to tell you why real as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
When you're excited and you're happy, you got the ding, ding, ding chemicals going on in your body, which is the adrenaline, the endorphins, all the feel good stuff.
Yeah.
When things don't go right, you hit a wall, all those feel good chemicals get depleted.
Yeah.
When they get depleted, you don't feel good. But you start over and you're like, I'll try again. And you try again and you get the feel good chemicals going. And then they get depleted when it doesn't work. And he cautioned me. He said, when this happens to somebody enough times, they flatline and they never try again. And they don't even know why. But the reason why is because the chemical drop is it makes you feel so much despair, shame, feeling failure, whatever word you want to put to it. And I'm like, well, Dad, okay, if this is the truth, what do you do? And he's like, well, this is where fake it till you make it really comes in. This is the understanding behind those words. Because if you go by the chemicals that are in your body, because we're not conscious of it, we don't think we're walking, talking chemical factories, you will stop and you'll never try again, and that will be your life. So you have to override it and keep on overriding it, because the passion is more powerful than the fear of disappointment or failure. So just wanted to share that last thing.
Yeah.
What you said.
Yeah. And I would call that act as if.
Act as if. Exactly.
Act as if you already have it. Act as if you're already doing it. Act as if your Broadway play is already up there and it's on its 52nd run, 52nd week. So there you go. All right. Deborah, this has been so much fun. I love your story. I love that you've found your voice and you've got your quills back and you're only giving them out for good. And I wish you and Paisley lots of love and lots of quills to come.
Thank you, because quills grow back. Thank you.
Exactly. And So for anyone who's been listening who has resonated with Deborah's story or Paisley's story and the idea of empowerment, please share this episode with a friend and give us a 5-star rating and review. And I love the fact that you have chosen to spend your time with me today and with Deborah. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So that's it for this week of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women.